Go do it. Take the opportunity. You don't know what life's going to throw at you.
Kelly, thank you for joining me here today on the Go at Manav. For those who don't know you, could you please tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Manav, for having me. I'm Kelly Forbes, and I'm the founder of a Collective, which is a responsible luxury accommodation booking platform that I launched in 2024. I've worked in luxury travel for the last 25 years, and hopefully through this podcast we can unpick a few elements of that career and dig out a few learnings along the way.
Definitely. And I'm looking forward to learning more about your journey in luxury travel for 25 years. Wow. So I think the first question that comes to my mind is, why are you so passionate about travel?
I would say the passion comes from understanding culture. When I was a child, I didn't really travel. Well, I didn't. Okay. I was raised, it was a single parent family. We didn't have the money. So actually I was in the UK all the time, pretty much for my holidays. So I had a bit of a thirst to see the world, see what was out there. And at the age of 18, being able to get into the travel industry for me was a complete eye-opener. I got to travel. I've traveled all around the world. It's so diverse. And that's what I love about culture is you're learning about other people's traditions and, why they are, who they are, and being able to find some kind of synergy in that connection with another human being all the way across the world. I think it's magical.
That's amazing. And so you told us briefly that you were 18 years old when you first started traveling. What was your first job then?
Yeah. So, I went to college and studied travel and tourism. So my first job, I actually worked the age of 18. I got the first job working in my neighbouring village. I was surrounded by quite a lot of affluent villages. And in this particular village was an amazing luxury travel agency. At the time, I didn't realise how great the company was. They're an award-winning company. But 18, whilst I could see, they were a good company, I hadn't appreciated how good they were. So I went in as an office junior, and the owners at the time were incredible. They were like second parents to me, another mum and dad. They were in business, if you like, my work mum and dad, I guess. And they took me under their wing. They trained me, and I flew to various destinations with them, went into meetings with them, which was a real privilege because they were very understanding that I had to learn. So they gave me these opportunities to sit in kind of boardroom situations, if you like, and sit in and listen and learn. And that's quite a privilege at the age of 18 to be in that environment, because you don't normally get those opportunities until you're moving up the ladder so much.
Definitely. Did you feel like at that time when you were 18, you were looking around with your peers as well? A lot of them were going to university. Did you consider yourself, why am I getting this job? I mean, why am I getting the opportunity to travel? How lucky I am. Did that impact you in a way personally?
Absolutely. Once I had left college, or while I was still in college, I guess, I had to make that decision as to whether university was right for me at the time. And whilst I had, itchy feet and wanted to explore the world, I didn't know, honestly, at that time that I wanted to stay in the travel industry. Who knew 25 years later, here I still am. At that time, I genuinely didn't know. I thought, okay, I could go to uni right now, but if I don't know what I want to study, and I don't know what I want to do with my life thereafter, I can't see the point in going to uni right now, because I believe that you have to have the passion in what it is that you want to do. I didn't know what that was. So I made that decision to not go to university at that time and instead go straight into the industry, which, I was still, even with a degree, I would have still gone in at the lowest level in the travel industry, one way or the other. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go in and get the experience behind me instead of going to uni. I don't regret it. I made the right decision at the time. I know when people were coming out with all of this debt from university, I actually bought my first house at that point. So
Wow.
I made a big investment with the money that I did have, instead of going to uni. So I was happy for everyone, all my friends that were going off to uni, but at that time, it wasn't for me.
Did you feel like you learned to take risks earlier on? Would you say that you deciding to not go to university, was that a risk for you, or was that something more genuine? I'm better off just starting my feet in the industry and I value experience more.
I did value the experience more. If you know what you want to do with your life, then university is an incredible opportunity. But I think there's a lot of people like me at the age of 18, you don't know what you want to do. And it's hard because we want to be passionate in finding that thing. We're not all fortunate to know very early on in our lives what we want to do with life, the career paths that we want to take. So for me, I think it was the right risk. Was it a risk? I'm not sure. At that time to take. And I think with risk, I'm always thinking I have a rough plan. I always have probably 80% of a plan, life plan, different professional plan, personal plan. You need to leave opportunity on the table, and improvisation and curiosity, and go with the pathway that comes available to you.
That's wise words for sure. Now, you've been in the industry for 25 years. Could you please tell us a particular highlight that stands out to you, a career highlight?
There's been lots of highlights, but I don't know if there's a particular career highlight. I think for me, actually, it's more about the people than a single standout moment. Like for me, what I recognized was how much I enjoy being around other people and how much I like to help other people. So like the mentoring, the leadership side, and every time that I had a role that was managing a team, I really thrived in those environments. For me, seeing other people doing well was great for me too. I'm not one that needs to be praised all the time. I'm kind of like the person that will get on with the job essentially. So for me, it was all about if my team are doing well, then we're all doing well together. So it's more, the leadership side, I would say, rather than a single moment for me.
Would you say that you then like to put people before you?
I probably do. Yeah, it's probably not always the right thing to do, if I'm honest, but I do. Yes, I always think about how other people will feel or how I can help them overcome a certain challenge or feeling that they have, or how I can help to reduce the impact of perhaps something negative and help to to swallow that, essentially. So yes, I probably do put others before myself. It's just me. It's the way I am.
I think everyone's been there for sure.
It probably comes from my mum. My mum was very similar. She's actually really maternal, and she fostered for years. So we had a lot of children around. And so, for her, it was always about trying to help others, get on with their lives. So I think it probably comes from the way that I was raised as well.
Definitely. I feel like your upbringing can really shape a lot of things that happen later on in your life. You don't realize that until, years later. A lot of it is from the initial impact from when you were younger, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible, actually. I was reading a book. What's it called? Watching the English. It's written by an anthropologist, Kate Fox. I'll give you the details.
Right.
It talks about, how we are as a culture and, things that we do that it's just in us, and it's a hilarious read, actually. And that talks a lot about childhood within that as well.
Okay, that sounds really cool. Now, on the contrast, just looking at your career in general, there has to be maybe a recurring theme that might have stood out in terms of persevering.
Yeah, well, travel is a volatile industry. So I joined travel in 2000, and so much has happened, in our industry, terrorist attacks to, natural disasters with tsunamis and Icelandic volcanoes erupting, financial crashes. There's been so much that's gone on, and of course, COVID. So every time I think anyone that has been in the travel industry as long as I have, we've gone through the mill several times with all of these disasters around the world. So, but every time you can learn something new from it. And at the time you think, oh my God, this is a complete disaster. How am I getting through? How are we going to get through this? Where is the light at the end of the tunnel? And it's not always close by. I think a lot of what we have to do is persevere, pivot, essentially as well, like constantly trying to find the right solution in that moment in time. And these are things that you've never come across before in your life, but you can reflect on them, you can learn from them and think, okay, if something like this happens again, we can kind of put something in place. Or as an individual, you think, aha, I've got this experience now of this situation, and learn from what I did well, and also obviously what didn't go so well. And you take that with you until the next, disaster happens. And unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of them, within our industry. So it's about being resilient and thinking, I guess at a time, this will pass, whilst it doesn't feel like it in that moment in time. If you think about COVID and the amount of travel companies that went under because it was such a long time, obviously, with the opening and the closing and, with all of various lockdowns, there was just nothing consistent in it, and people just weren't traveling. So we had to pivot, we had to do things differently. So I think resilience and being open to change is key, really.
Speaking about open to change, could you please tell us more about the year 2020, and in particular, why was it such a big year for you? And also, what was COVID-19 like for you?
2020 was incredibly hard. For me in particular, I had just given birth to our second baby. So just as we went into the first lockdown, felt like forever.
Yeah.
I was not sleeping. I had a newborn baby. I also had a toddler as well to take care of. At times it felt quite lonely because I was up in the night and, feeding baby and looking after baby, but also reading or watching the news. My anxiety was through the roof because, when you've worked in travel for such a long time, you have a global collection of friends around the world, friends and colleagues. And so it's not just about what was going on here in the UK and seeing, death numbers rising. It was across the world. Some countries didn't have the same policies and procedures in place, perhaps, that we did here. And I found that quite hard because thinking of other people, and what they're having to go through. So it was quite a profound time for me because I was wondering what will happen for the travel industry. I didn't know if I'd have a job. At that time I was on maternity leave. I didn't know if I would have a job to go back to, or if it would be the same job that I would be going back to. And at that point, I'd had this business idea previously. It kept niggling, it kept, popping up, and timing was never right. So for me, I was thinking, well, I don't know how long we're going to be in lockdown or how long COVID's going to be around for. So maybe what I do is use this opportunity, if you like, to go and educate myself, go and study. So I enrolled into Oxford Brookes University, which, with a newborn and a toddler in hand and in tow, and off I went, and decided that I would still wanted to work in travel, had a business idea that was travel related, and wanted to really understand what the future of luxury travel was. So I went off and started in the September as a student with a couple of 18-year-olds, which was an eye-opener, terrifying, and wondering, what am I doing? So yeah, it was an interesting year for me. It's a pivotal year, actually, not knowing where I was going, and then all of a sudden found myself in a completely different pathway that 12 months earlier I would never have thought that that's where I would be.
If it wasn't for COVID-19, would you have still gone back to university?
I think I always wanted to. I always wanted to go, but it's finding the right time. A lot of people might say that COVID was not the right time, but for me it was, because it gave me an opportunity to take a break in so many ways. So it's very difficult, I think, when you get used to an income, and then you having a family. It's a big sacrifice, I guess. It's a big gamble, big risk as to whether you can do it, and is it worthwhile going as well. Would I have gone? I always wanted to. It's just that when would that have been? And COVID just seemed like this is the opportunity to do it.
It's now or never.
Yeah, now or never. That's how it felt. Yeah.
And how was university like for you going there as a mature student?
I loved it. I really loved it. It was fascinating because, as I say, for me, it was all about thinking about what is the future of luxury, thinking about sustainability and how that played out in every module it was that I was doing. But aside from the modules, what I loved was being in various classrooms with a couple of hundred 18 to 21-year-old students. That was
Yeah.
fascinating because, we are a generation apart, and I love listening to what they had to say because they did have different perspectives than me. There was just so much talent in the room. And I really thought that for me was equally as educational as the degree itself. I thought that was, to me, it was special. It was a special time. And I'm glad that I did it the way that I did, with all of that experience coming into that educational space with those students allowed me to ask the silly questions. If I can't ask now, when can I ask? And I think the students kind of appreciated that as well. I'm sure there was quite a few that were probably rolling their eyes. But I did ask, I was quite inquisitive. I did want to learn. And I think hopefully that the questions that I was asking were questions that they perhaps wanted to ask, but weren't comfortable to ask the question, essentially. So I loved it.
Okay. Would you do a master's degree?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
I already
very
have
confident.
very much. I'm planning on doing a master's in sustainable leadership. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whilst I was absolutely exhausted after the 3 years of studying, with the children and everything, and also back to work, part-time thrown in that as well. It was tough. And I was exhausted by the end, when you submit that last paper, my goodness, I need a break.
Finally.
But actually from the time of submitting your last paper through to graduation, already by graduation, I was starting to miss education. I missed it. I was missing that thirst because I wanted to start a business. It wasn't for me just about doing a module and learning from the module. I spent my time during semesters using the tools that university had provided me with to research. So I was really on top of my game, essentially. So to have that kind of element taken away, I didn't like that. So yeah, for me, definitely going on to do a master's, without a doubt.
Awesome. What was it like for you to quit your corporate life to pursue entrepreneurship? And could you please tell us more about your entrepreneurship adventures and stories? Yeah.
Yeah, corporate life, it's a completely different kettle of fish when you're employed. And I think for me, you go through life, not everyone, but for me, you're kind of chasing a job title, chasing the salary, essentially. But I think I got to a certain point where that wasn't as important to me, particularly when my first child came around. For me, things changed. I didn't want to be chasing that. I wanted more of a balance with family life. So for me, I at that point was looking for culture over anything else. Company culture was so important. And I did work for a B Corp company in marketing, sales and marketing, and they were incredible. Like, their company culture was all about looking after the team and understanding that many of us had children, and finding that balance was difficult, and that was appreciated. Some flexibility there was appreciated. I mean, this is obviously in times pre-COVID. Flexibility wasn't always on the cards in the corporate environment, so I almost left the kind of corporate environment as my first child came, and then worked in a really nice kind of organically grown organization. I learned a lot from that company as to what I would like my own business to be. They led by example in that way. And that really helped then the transition to starting my own business as well. I think B Corp certification is amazing. And I think if you've got that kind of mindset that you want a successful and thriving business, but you want to do good as well. You want to make a difference, with what you can, the tools that you've got essentially to do better. So for me, it was a nice transition into entrepreneurship, essentially. Entrepreneurship is I love it, but it is also very difficult because whilst I consider myself a sustainable travel expert, that's just one element of what I do. Of course, when you start your business, there's so much more to it that you don't know. And so, for example, I wanted technology to be a big focus in my business, but I didn't have all of the knowledge to integrate all of that technology, I had to get some help, and sometimes I had to do things myself. That's a learning curve, because I think what can happen is when you do something for yourself, you realize and appreciate how hard an element of the job can be. So therefore, at least when you've given it a go yourself and you think, okay, I can now outsource this, you know exactly what you're looking for because you've had experience of doing it yourself, and also an appreciation to someone else's skill set.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, completely heard everything you said right there. So, based on you now leaving your corporate life to now pursuing entrepreneurship, what are you up to nowadays? Because you mentioned when you started entrepreneurship, you're very into it. And do you still have the same passion where you are right now? Because obviously, with entrepreneurship, it's a hustle. You got to keep going. You know, it's your business. You can do whatever you want with it. So, what are you doing now? And how has that changed when you first started?
I think probably 9 months before starting the business, it was all putting down some foundations, and that can be quite slow. But I'm very much a big believer in solid foundations and, of course, values behind those foundations. This is part of me and what I believe in and how I want to see that flourish, essentially, in the business. So I spent a lot of time putting, behind the scenes where people hadn't really, aren't talking to me, and I'm kind of building what that is. And you get a lot of people going, oh, when are you launching and how many customers have you got? And, lots and lots of questions. And in reality, things take longer, a lot longer than you anticipate. I think unless you're getting serious investment, obviously that can help to speed up the process. But if you're bootstrapping, like I am, then you're doing a lot of it yourself. Therefore, these things are slower. But I believe that they're done well. So it's very different to, finally launching the business and someone's actually got something they can see. It's tangible, essentially, rather than, an idea. So building the platform has been key for me, and really focusing on, like I say, those foundations like SEO, for example, is a big part. And that's something that I've been working on from the offset and getting some support, with that as well. That organic growth takes such a long time, but it's great to see that coming through when your keywords are starting to rank on page 1. It's amazing, but it's a long time to get it there, isn't it?
We want it to just happen sooner, if not just by tomorrow. And I think I always have to keep reminding myself as well that you can't really expect things to happen instantly. If not, it's almost like going to the gym or just learning how to ride a bike, just anything in general. I think it's going to obviously take a lot longer, and having the patience to be consistent with it. I think that's the tricky bit with many people. And the difference between succeeding and not is, can you be consistent?
You're right. I mean, when I was at university, I had mentors that helped me put my initial business plan together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was really amazing opportunity to speak to people to help me with, putting the right frameworks down and working, towards those. But to be honest, it's very different putting a business plan together and then actually seeing it through. Because honestly, I've pivoted so much from that original business plan. And whilst kind of like the holistic approach is very much still there, the way that you get to something is just twists and turns in every way, shape and form.
That's life.
It is, isn't it?
Cool. So I actually have one last question for you, and I would like to end it similarly to what we were discussing earlier at the start about you entering the travel industry at age 18. So imagine if you were not yet entering the industry, but were still doing your A levels at the time, still back in school. What would you say to the 18-year-old Kelly right now?
I have to say, the first half of my career, I wouldn't change a thing. I've loved it. So I have no regrets, in that sense as to what I've done. I would say probably to take more opportunities, take more risk as well, but still travel. I mean, I have traveled extensively in deep forms as well, not just flitting around the globe, even backpacked for 2 years and took full flights across 3 continents over those couple of years. So for me, I wouldn't change that. I would say, go do it. Take the opportunity. You don't know what life's going to throw at you. You can have a plan. But like we were saying, there's twists and turns. And for me, I find it so educational to travel. It's culturally enriching. I feel like I'm a better person for the amount of traveling that I have done. I have a deeper appreciation for others as well. So I would tell myself to go and get it. Go girl.
And you did it. Thank you, Kelly. For people who would like to learn more about you, what would be the best way for them to get in touch?
LinkedIn is a great channel. I can give you my link to that, Manav. Take a look at the website and see what it is that I'm about. Hopefully that will inspire a few people going forward.
Definitely. And just before we end the podcast, could you please tell the viewers, if you haven't yet, just a bit more about what you do for your business?
Yeah, sure. The reason why I started the business was because I was working for many hotel brands and I was essentially doing their sales in the UK market. Particular brands that I was looking after were incredible when it came to conservation work and impact. So essentially what we were experiencing is luxury guests would come and stay at the properties and they would be giving back essentially to helping to support communities to help them build their schools and educate the children and bringing in water. So it was really nice to see that whilst that guest was having a luxury experience, they were giving back. But what I was experiencing in the marketplace was when I would talk about these great stories that the brands were doing, they would get these little green ticks and green leaves. And I was like, what is this? Why are we just talking about, responsible travel and sustainable and even regenerative travel through ticks and leaves and things? And I thought, this isn't right. I decided to start a collective by telling the sustainable stories, like how you can still have a luxury experience but with the responsibility behind it, knowing that that organization or, that one hotelier has this passion to give back. So I've been finding all of these amazing hotels around the world. I want to tell their story and why luxury is not just about the glitterati and the consumerism. It can be extremely meaningful. And hopefully that's what comes across on my platform.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. And for those who are watching, make sure to like and subscribe. And new guests will be coming on very soon. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us here today, and speak to you soon.
Thanks, Manav. Thanks for having me.